will now call the October 25th, 2023 regular Historic Preservation Commission meeting to order. This meeting has been posted in accordance with Nevada Open Meeting Law. All voting members are present. We have a quorum. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on the agenda is the initial comment period. Public comment during this portion of the meeting must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. Each person has up to 5 minutes to speak on a specific agenda item. The public may call 702-589-9629 to provide comment. I'm assuming there's no comments that were written in. And there's no one in the audience, and I don't hear anybody calling in, so we will close the initial comment period. Moving on to agenda item 1, approval of the minutes of the September 27th, 2023 meeting.
Make a motion to accept minutes as printed.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved unanimously. Agenda item number 2. For possible action, discussion of report on the economic benefits of historic preservation in Boulder City.
Good evening, Chair and Commission and new faces. Nice to see you guys. So for the benefit of the new faces, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Courtney Mooney. I'm an architectural historian for Northwind Resource Consulting. We're based out of Phoenix, but I live in Las Vegas and have since 1994. Before I worked for Northwind, I was the City of Las Vegas's Historic Preservation Officer and Urban Design Coordinator. And after that, I started working for Northwind in about 2017. And our first contract with the city was to complete an update of the 1983 National Register nomination for the Boulder City Historic District, after which we worked with a local architecture firm to develop a preservation treatment plan for the water filtration plant on Railroad Avenue. And then finally, we received the contract to provide historic preservation services to Boulder City since, and we've been doing that since 2021. So regarding the economic benefit, the white paper, we prepared a study outlining the economic benefits of historic preservation and examining its impact on the economic development of Boulder City. And I understand you guys have the report before you, so I'm just going to kind of go over some key findings. We relied on national studies conducted by an organization called Place Economics. They have been working on, they've been conducting analyses of the economic impacts of historic preservation for 30 years. We specifically used their publication, 24 Reasons Historic Preservation is Good for Your Community, and that was published in 2020, so it has pretty recent findings. And we used that to develop a framework for measuring the economic benefits of historic preservation for Boulder City. We looked at available statistics from the local real estate and labor markets, construction activity, developments in the local heritage tourism industry, and we interviewed small business owners and local officials. And this revealed that historic preservation has had a generally positive effect on the local economy. For example, nationwide, it's been shown that homes in historic districts typically do better when the market is improving. They fall later and less steeply when markets decline, and they recover their value more quickly than those located in other neighborhoods, or I should say comparable neighborhoods. In Boulder City, historic preservation has shown to increase property values by reducing vacancy. It's promoted neighborhood stability and resiliency, and it has encouraged the long-term economic health of the community. So specifically, what we found pretty interesting was an analysis of the residential sales of Boulder City between 2017 and 2022 indicated that homes located within the historic district typically sold for prices, and this is per square foot, that were 68% higher than similar homes located in other parts of the city. So one of the things that this doesn't necessarily mean that homes within the district are selling for more overall than homes outside of the district, because typically historic homes, and especially as shown in Boulder City, within the district are a little bit smaller. So you might get a larger amount for your home outside, but per square footage, they're 68% higher than similar homes. And then on top of that, homes that were considered contributing resources to the district, they commanded prices that were approximately 13% higher than non-contributing properties. So again, this is a pretty huge difference. Also, we looked at recent construction activity, because this can kind of provide a reliable metric for gauging the impact of historic preservation policy on local economic growth. And between 2015 and 2020, there were 205 permits issued for new construction and 390 permits issued for remodeling projects in Boulder City, more than 65% of the construction activity in Boulder City during the 5-year study period. So this was in the district, I'm sorry. Furthermore, the total value of the rehabilitation projects completed during this time were valued at $80 million, or 25% more than the $60 million valuation for new construction. So that's also a pretty significant difference. And construction is actually, rehab construction within historic districts is helpful to neighborhoods. It helps them evolve over time. It helps historic buildings adapt to new technologies. And it also requires the skills of local tradespeople, typically. And so these tradespeople command slightly higher wages, and all of this goes back into the local community. So it's a good thing. Another key finding was that historic preservation stimulates economic growth through small businesses and startup development. And these types of businesses are attracted to the unique character, affordability, the size of kind of smaller commercial buildings, and location of historic commercial areas. And when you have a cluster of unique kind of boutique businesses that are in historic buildings that still look historic, heritage tourism tends to grow. And we know that heritage tourists are beneficial because they stay longer and they spend more money than other tourists. A study was done before we wrote the white paper, looking at Visa View card spending, and the data from that suggests that approximately 34% of consumer spending at local merchants occurred at businesses that could be tied to the heritage tourism community. So downtown or in the older buildings and boutique businesses. Mm-hmm. And finally, I think one really key factor that has helped Boulder City was that it has good bones. So Boulder City, like a lot of other historic towns, was built, kind of on a grid system. Mm-hmm. And this was done because, the idea of being able to conveniently get to your destination without a lot of blocked off streets or curving streets, I guess, was the thought at the time. So the idea that, you would have this commercial core, and then you would have residences that were adjacent to that, and then other services that were within walking distance. And Boulder City has that, in spades. So I think walkability is a really key factor with Boulder City. What some of the businesses spoke to was because of the walkable nature of Boulder City, it's really easy to have a lot of these cool events, like the wine walk and some of these other events, because you get to kind of stroll. And of course, you want to come here for that because it's this amazing downtown and all these cool, historic buildings. So you come here, you wander, and you can just, if you live here, you can easily access services and restaurants and bars or whatever it is you're into. You can walk to work. So it's walkability is a key factor in economic development and historic preservation, and I think that's a really good thing that Boulder City was born with that. So that's pretty much, those are the key findings. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take those questions.
Does anybody have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I would like to say, yet again, I listened to your podcast, which was very in-depth with the chamber, I think it was, with Jill.
Yep.
And you did a good job, very professional, very thorough. So thank you for your work.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I have a few questions.
Sure.
You mentioned the statistics for the permits, the construction permits, whether they were new and remodel. Were you able to partition out not only the quantity but the dollar amounts, whether that was for or how much was for commercial versus residential permits?
I don't know if it wasn't specifically stated in the white paper. Then probably not. And that was kind of one of the things that we discovered with this effort, was that there are a lot of data gaps, and there is room to do some deep dives into some other aspects. One of the things that Jill Lagan, who's the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce, she asked if the sales prices were, and there are other factors that go into that, but one of the factors that she was curious about was the growth ordinance. So, and that would be really interesting too, to kind of do a deep dive into as well. Because we compared a lot of this stuff, we compared with other historic districts in like Phoenix and Arizona and Utah. And we looked at, because we were trying to get kind of a comparable area. The Southwest, we have, similar kind of growth activity in the Southwest. And it was, nobody else had a growth ordinance. So that is a factor that, could potentially impact some of the data. So again, we are, there's multiple ways we could go with this. And again, I don't think we did parcel that out, but that might be another suggestion to go, another direction.
My other question was, what are the next steps for this white paper? A couple options I was thinking of is, are you presenting this to City Council or anybody else in the city? But also, is this something that is this like a baseline, and you will maybe do this every 1, 2, 3, 5 years or something to kind of continually gauge how preservation is benefiting the community?
So I can answer that question. The impetus for preparing this study was actually one of the goals in the city's 2025 strategic plan. Mm-hmm. And it was to evaluate and assess the economic impact of historic preservation within the community. And so it's accomplished that goal. The city has put it up on the city's website, and certainly one of the additional opportunities for promotion of it could be through the commission's efforts in Historic Preservation Day to get that information out to the community And we'll certainly look at other opportunities to promote the study.
Is there a need to directly update the city council on this, or do they know about it?
Yeah,
just
we've shared it
through-
with the city council.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then are there any, I guess, lessons learned moving forward? Or perhaps what can we do to continue to make this, to make historic preservation an economic benefit? Will it affect things like improved housing or affordable housing, or I don't know, maybe incorporating a Main Street program, improving the incentives. There are existing incentives, historic preservation incentives like the RDA, use of taxes, maybe partnerships, like leveraging this to maintain or establish partnerships with museums or other tourism industries or other governmental agencies like the Park Service or the Bureau of Reclamation. Like, where do we go from here now that we have this great report?
Well, certainly, we're focused on the goals that have been laid out by the commission first and foremost. And I think as a continued effort at promotion and education, whether it's other governmental entities, the general public, dissemination of the study's results, I think, is the key objective.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else?
I think Michael just touched on a little what I was thinking about, if there, with some of these statistics and such, the graphs that put together this report are very interesting. And it'd be nice if we could find a way of getting some of this and some of these graphs possibly to the residents that live in the historic district and the business districts, is, because, over the years, there's been a certain amount of pushback from people that were not at all excited about historic preservation, the new ordinances coming down, and, maybe if they see some of these numbers, how impactful, in a positive way it is for the areas, that, they might be more inclined to get on board with it. They can see that there's a positive direct result of historic preservation in an area, and then I think it would try and find a way of getting that info to those people, and, and hopefully maybe they'll get on board with more of what this commission and the city is trying to do with historic preservation. So I don't know if we put a couple of these graphs in utility flyers or something. We can go to all residents. Just a little. It doesn't have to be the whole report, but just some of the more impactful ones of how it's helped housing values and and such. So I don't know if that's doable or not, but I'm just kind of throwing that out there. Maybe powers that be can come up with a way of making something like that happen, if it's possible. So, just a couple thoughts.
Thanks a lot, Courtney. Appreciate it. Unless somebody else has any other comments.
Thank you.
Thanks a bunch.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very informative.
Thanks. Yeah,
Enjoyed
it
reading
was
it.
fun to do it.
Thanks, Courtney.
Frustrating at times because there were it was hard to get some of the data, but for the most part, it was really fun.
Good.
Oops, excuse me.
All right, moving on to agenda item 3 for possible action, discussion with Northwind Resource Consulting on potential changes to the adopted exterior design guidelines for various properties in the historic district.
Okay. So some of this might be a little bit of repeat for a couple of you, so I apologize for that. For the benefit of the new folks, I might repeat a couple of things. So as some of you know, we've been working diligently with Chair Davenport and the commission and city staff, Michael and Susan, for some time to update these design guidelines for contributing and non-contributing properties and new infill construction. The design guidelines for contributing properties were approved by the HPC several months ago, And so this that you have before you tonight these are the final pieces of the puzzle before they all go to council for consideration. I should mention that what you see before you is not the final appearance of the documents. We actually have a graphic artist that's kind of waiting until all the content has been approved, and then it will move around. I joke that it sort of right now looks like a little kid playing with a felt board, which is my doing. I just wanted to make sure that, you know, the content and the graphics were connected so you can kind of see where we're going with it. The contextual guidelines, which is before you this evening, are for non-contributing properties, including buildings that were constructed within the district's period of significance, which was established by the 1983 nomination, and that is 1931 to 1945. And after the period, and for non-contributing buildings that were constructed after the period of significance, 1946 to current, and then all new infill construction within the district. The guidelines were modeled after the Secretary of the Interior standards for new construction and infill and alterations, and tailored for Boulder City. The guidelines for contributing properties are more prescriptive, and like I said, those were approved by the HPC a few months ago. So they're a little bit more detailed. They have images of the different models of, you know, the homes, and they talk specifically about, you know, this window for this model, or, you know, stucco versus brick, etc. While the contextual design guidelines are much broader. And often with contextual design guidelines, the larger aspects of a project, which would be the placement of buildings, the orientation of buildings, placement on a lot, I should say, orientation of buildings, the scale of the buildings, mass of the buildings, sort of rhythm of buildings along a street, and rhythm of windows and doors on buildings, and, you know, the building form. These carry more importance than the more specific design aspects that I mentioned earlier, such as, you know, exactly what kind of window, exactly what kind of siding would you have on the home, etc. So generally speaking, what the contextual design guides try to do is to protect remaining historic materials that are either on buildings that are over 50 years old, or even non-contributing buildings. They state that these historic materials should not be damaged by new construction or alteration, that new work should be differentiated from the old, and work should not adversely affect the character-defining features of adjacent contributing properties, the remaining historic features of the property itself, if anything is there, and the overall historic district, including streetscapes. So for clarification, contributing properties are those that add to the historic integrity or architectural qualities that define or are directly associated with the significance of the district, because they haven't been significantly altered, or there haven't been large additions on them. So you can still kind of take a look at the building and you understand its place, its role in the district. Non-contributing properties are those that were, you know, either constructed within the established period of significance and have been relocated, which there are just a couple of those, or altered to the point where they can no longer contribute to the significance of the district. Or they were constructed outside of the period of significance, and they don't share any of the historic associations of the district. So new construction can mean additions, alterations, accessory buildings, and some hardscape elements such as walls, driveways, and walkways. Infill is also considered new construction. However, infill typically refers to brand new buildings that come onto like an empty lot, or it can mean accessory structures placed on a property, or even in the case of if you have, I'm trying to remember, I think it's 644 Nevada Highway, the apartment complexes. If you put in new infill would also include just, maybe plunking some buildings in the middle of that open space, which might not be appropriate. So let's see, go to the next. Oops, yep, no, that's right. So each guideline document starts with an overview and a purpose statement, followed by a set of guidelines, followed by illustrations and additional explanations. And these guidelines apply to all building types, residential, commercial, office, etc. The key to administering the guidelines is open communication with property owners, hopefully prior to a property owner reaching out to an architect or an engineer to develop plan drawings, because this is the way that we can kind of discuss some of the design choices and see if we can, work on some of those design elements that may or may not be compatible with the district. And I think rather than walk you through each set of guidelines, as you have, I'm sure, all reviewed your packets, I'll just open it up now to questions. And we have them here on the screen as well as your packet, so we should be able to easily flip around if you need to.
Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Very thorough.
So you know me, I always have lots of details, which I'll probably write up and send them your way,
Okay.
like I've done in the past. If
Sure.
that's okay. But in summary, there was a couple of things that stood out. One is these 3 guidelines or sets of guidelines are repetitive in a lot of ways. And I'm just wondering if it would help to have some kind of, I hate to say it, a matrix to distinguish maybe the differences between the 3. I don't know. It was just something I was pondering to figure out, what's the difference between the 3? So there was that. And then I was wondering if it was necessary to somehow make this not match, but I was confused by the word new construction in relation to what it says in our code. There is no definition of new construction. Alteration is the definition that includes new construction, I believe, although it doesn't specifically say new construction. And so what I'm getting at, though, is down the line, when somebody puts in for a permit and they're going to do X, Y, or Z, and it's a nebulous, is it new construction? Is it an addition? Is it a new building plopped in the middle of an empty lot or not? I don't know if there's a need for somehow to be consistent with the code, but also the Secretary of Interior standards. So anyway, I was just pondering that too. I have no solution for that. Let's see. What else did I say? And I think those were my 2 main questions or comments at this time. And I also, the other one was to be consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards. Would it be helpful to list the Secretary of Interior standard that the numbered guidelines apply to? I don't know. Unless that comes out in the certificate of appropriateness process and the permitting process. And do we even talk about the certificate of appropriateness here, or maybe we don't? Can't remember if we did with the other design guidelines, but anyway.
Okay,
Those
so
were
I have
my
a couple
initial-
questions for you.
Yes.
Okay, so regarding the matrix, I'm not opposed to that. I just have to visualize it.
Me too.
I think what might help is eventually when we get the interactive map done, when people click on their property, they're not going to see the other stuff. They're only going to see the design guidelines that are appropriate to their property. They can certainly access the other design guidelines if they want, but if they don't want to and all they want to see is what applies to them, then that's all they're going to see. So I don't know if that will help because they're not going to be looking at the repetitiveness of the other guidelines. So it's just something to think about when you are thinking about your comments. And maybe, we can also discuss this offline as well and kind of think about some different ideas for that.
Okay.
The Secretary of the Interior standards and being consistent with that language, the guidelines that are here were taken from the standards, and they were kind of tweaked a little bit to sort of meet, to be applicable to Boulder City. So I'm not sure if we want to also include, because these are specifically for alterations, new construction, and infill. So I'm not sure if we want to put the rest of the standards in there or not. It might be too much. I think it's very wordy as it is, but I'm not sure how to cut that back, because I also feel like maybe more information is better than less information. So anyway, again, we can think about, I just wanted to let you know kind of initial thoughts on that, and then we can certainly have a quick phone call and discuss some options.
For example, the one standard, SOI standard for new additions will be differentiated from the old and. It's not or, it's and will be compatible with the historic materials, features, et cetera, et cetera. And I wasn't sure how to convey that when somebody's putting in a new addition, that it's not only that it has to be differentiated, and this is a common issue where somebody puts in a new addition and it's completely different. And that's all they read, that it's completely different, so I'm good to go. But it's like, no, it also has to be compatible.
Yep, that makes sense.
And I don't know how to convey that here, where they go together, and they're not necessarily separate. So,
Yeah. No, I discovered that the National Park Service has at least 2 slightly different versions of the standards, with some words different, like just like something like that, right? So I'll take a look at our source and see, what it said. What you said makes perfect sense, but I do know that I was kind of reviewing one, and I said, that doesn't sound like what we have in the guidelines, but they're both from the Park Service. They're on different web pages, but they're both from the Park Service. So yes, I will take another look at that to make sure the wording is consistent.
And then your images are great. I really appreciate that you're using illustrations that are similar to what we have here, instead of like Victorian or modern, buildings, that we don't have any of that style here. But so I just had a couple of comments about maybe better cite or describing what is appropriate and what isn't appropriate. And I don't know, again, I was just scanning this and figuring it, like for instance, for number 4, new construction, where we're plopping in the 2 buildings within the apartment complex, it says it's inappropriate. Well, what is appropriate for the placement of a building in a in a property that has historic properties around it or next to it or whatever? I mean, I guess that's kind of insinuated by the other figures, but, and then like figure 5, it says it's a contributing property as an example, and you have an incompatible alteration. Do you have an example of a compatible alteration? Unless that contributing property has a compatible alteration that should be noted, which is the wraparound. Well, I know which property that is, so, but anyway. And for figure 6, I wasn't sure what the dotted lines mean.
Okay. That just means where it says be consistent with the setbacks of the building and the arcaded canopies just continue that line down the street on the left, and then the right is, again, looking at just the form of the building where you've got the canopy and the parapet. So we can add some language for that.
Okay. That's all I had. Anybody else?
You asked all the good questions.
You know
She always
me.
does.
Well, this is great. I'm so glad that we're here. And I think also, I mean, you mentioned hardscape. I mean, is that another illustration that you might add? Or I'm always harping on landscapes and view sheds and that kind of stuff too. But
So if, actually, let me go back here. You can kind of see where they're talking about the setbacks there in figure 1, and then 1.2, and we're showing the rhythm of the paths and the sidewalk with, you know, the separation of the sidewalk from the street with the planting strip. And we're saying in 1.2 to kind of take a look at those features, but since we can't mandate what people do, I think this is more, again, on the onus of the property owner to take a look at those features that are listed in that description for 1.2.
okay, I don't see a driveway or a pathway. Or a wall.
It might be kind of faded. Let me see.
Maybe it's not as,
So you can see the yellow pathways going up to the entries, and the yellow is the sidewalk going this way.
oh, I getcha. There it is.
And this one also shows some driveways, but.
Courtney,
Add-
sorry, could you get it
I'm
back
so
to the
sorry.
mic? Holly's having a hard time picking you up.
I know, I'm so sorry.
Okay. I mean, that's all I have for now.
Okay.
The yellow brick road there.
So driveways. Okay.
What is the status of the design guidelines for the contributing properties?
So we were waiting to complete all of the guidelines and present them to the council
Got it.
together. So what I think we can do is take this input and make some potential changes, bring this back to the commission at the next meeting, if that's possible. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks again, Courtney.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Good comments as usual. Appreciate it very much.
All right. Moving on to Agenda Item 4 for possible action, discussion regarding activities for Historic Preservation Day and award for 2024.
Thank you, Chair. We'll start with HP Day, and the first order of business is for the commission to consider what day they'd like to have next year. And as the report notes, May is the National Preservation Month. And in the past, when the commission has held an event, it's been on the second Saturday in May. And if you choose to do that for next year, that would fall on May 11th. That would also mean there is not a prior council date in May, since May 11th would fall before the first council meeting in May. So when that happens, if you choose to have the award presentation in advance so that that information would be available on HP Day, that means that the award would need to go to the council for their April 23rd meeting. And of course, the commission can make whatever changes you like. If you'd rather have your event later in May and have the award presented at the first council meeting in May, I mean, you can choose whatever times you like, but as you know, May happens to be a pretty busy month for outdoor activities in Boulder City. And so you know that Spring Jam is the first weekend in May, so that always knocks that out of the park, so to speak. And it also will depend on what kind of event you want to do. But picking the date sets the calendar for everything else. So if you want to discuss that tonight, that would be a good start.
Does anybody know if there's any conflict for the 11th of May here in town, as far as any events or?
What date is Spring Jamboree?
It's the weekend before.
So it's the
Spring Jamboree is always the first weekend of May.
11th and 18th, and then the city council. 11th sounds good, unless somebody has.
My only question is, I think I brought up before, does our having it on the 11th, does that have any effect on, because Mother's Day is the day after, do people go out of town to go visit mom, or mom comes into town to visit kids, or, I don't know the answer to that. I'm just kind of, anybody have any thoughts on that of
For what it's worth, you've generally almost always had it on the second Saturday in May. So it's
that
always
really-
been Mother's Day weekend. And as you know, in years past, depending on, I guess, what you're doing or how often you're doing the same kind of thing over and over again, some years you have great turnouts and other years not so much. But I don't know as you would blame that on Mother's Day.
Yeah. No, I was just kind of throwing it out there, just make people think about it a little bit. Personally, I'm fine with whatever day we pick. I just kind of, in case somebody else had some different thoughts on something, if might interfere with something special going on or not.
I would think consistency is always good when you keep it, so people would know generally this is when that's going to take place. And like Susan said, you always have something that will interfere, but if it doesn't interfere with us, 11 sounds good to me. Just to be consistent with the second Saturday in May. Everybody knows that's Historical Day.
Yep, that works for me. I was just
Good for me.
getting out there to throw it out, just make sure we're all thinking on the same page. I don't have a problem with May 11th, so.
Well, if you're all good with May 11th, then that ties into the discussion for the award. And if you'll flip to the next page, I've got 2 draft possible timelines because you've got plenty of months to, relatively speaking, to plan for HP days, since that's more than 6 months out. But as you can see from the gray boxes on the tables, what requires earlier action is sending out a notice to the public for them to turn in their nominations for the annual award, because that has to get rolling so that everything is in place by the time HP Day comes around. So on these sets of calendars, working back from, well, in this case, option 1 is if you have May 11th, HP Day, and if you've got the council award prior to HP Day, which would mean that the council is announcing the award winner at the second meeting in April. And option 2 is simply, it still has HP Day on May 11th, but if you wanted more time to deal with the award, you could have the council present the award after HP Day. There wasn't a lot of play in the calendar for other options here. But those are the basic 2 ones, and as you can see, in either case, we'd have to have the award flyer ready in early December so that it could go out and be mailed with the utility mailers in January. And then later on, the flyer that would go out for actual HP Day would have to be ready in early March so that it could go out in the mailers in April, since your event is going to be in early May. And for those new members who may not be aware, with the utility bill mailers, they get mailed out in 2 phases. Half the town gets theirs mailed around the 1st of the month, and the other half of the town gets theirs mailed out around the 15th of the month. So it's not like you can say, well, everybody gets the notice early May, because, by the time half the town got that notice, HP Day would be over with already. So we have to do those mailings in April, which means a March deadline for that one. But you don't have to worry about, what activities you're going to advertise for that just yet. But since we would have to get moving on the flyer announcing the award, what would be helpful is if you could decide, preferably tonight, if you want to just simply follow the same format for the award process as you've done for recent years. So the packet includes the information that's been on the website in the past, as well as the nomination form, and what the web pages, these are from last year, it pretty much shows you the criteria that you say that you're going to be using to evaluate award winners. And pretty much the criterion, is that the properties do need to be within the historic district, but we really can't control what properties people will nominate. And of course, people don't know where those invisible historic district boundaries are. So there's no need to get too picky and say, well, you can only nominate a contributing property versus a non-contributing property. I mean, people won't know the difference. So you leave it pretty broad. And then once they all come in, as you know, staff will provide those to you all at once and give you an analysis of what's contributing or not. And, the ones that aren't in the district simply won't be considered. But as I said, the past process has been the one you've been using for the last few years. So if you could let us know if that's what you want to continue with, that'll make things go more smoothly.
Well, it's kind of, if it's not broke, why fix it? I mean, it's been working. I don't know if I've not heard any complaints about the way we've been doing it for the last few years. I mean, is there any, unless somebody's seen a reason to change it, I've not.
This would be my first year, so.
Well, I mean,
don't have a dog in the fight yet.
somebody's participated or seen flyers in the past year or, followed up who's won, who lost or whatever. I mean, I don't know, Susan and Michael probably would hear more about it than we have. Have you guys heard any, has there been any issues with the way we've been doing it, or?
No, we don't really get inquiries about it, but as you know, we make it a point to post all that information online. So anybody who goes to the city's webpage for historic preservation, which I believe Michael probably went over with you last month, there's loads of information there, including all of the past award winners, and information about that. So
How many
people,
nominations were there last year?
I'm sorry, there are very few. I can't remember if it was one or if it was three off the top of my head.
Is it categories, like business buildings versus residential?
No, if you get a chance later, if you haven't already, if you look over at the web pages that are in there, it spells out that people can nominate anything. They can nominate a landscape feature. They can nominate churches. They can nominate houses. They can nominate commercial businesses, whatever they like. Traditionally, we usually get more nominations for residential, but we've also had nominations for non-residential buildings too. And as the current commissioners are aware, sometimes the commission will nominate a property because maybe you'll get very few nominations, and maybe those won't necessarily come up to what standards you think there should be for the winner of the award. So sometimes the commission will, nominate their own property. But you don't know about that really until you see what's come in, although you're citizens as well, so you could fill out the form online and submit a nomination as well.
Was it last year or the year before? I think one of the commission people nominated the old hotel.
Oh, that's been nominated a number of times.
Yeah, it's, I think one of our members brought it up again, last year, or the year before. So, I mean, it's, I was just, as an example of what's happened in the
Can a
past.
property be nominated more than once, or can they win more than once?
They can't win more than once, but properties can certainly be nominated more than once. And in some years, early on, we got a lot more nominations. So for instance, one of the items on the webpage information says that the winner is not based on how many nominations it gets. So sometimes you might get 2 or 3 people nominating the same house. That tends to occur when the house is for sale. And they like to get the publicity for that. And so it's not a matter of how many nominations a property gets. You know, the commission still uses its own standards, which is listed in the information in the web pages. But in terms of the timeline, really, like I said, most of it's the same. The only thing I guess you could decide is, do you want the council to present the award prior to HP Day, so that depending on whatever your event is for HP Day, that would already be known? Or do you care, and would you rather the council present the award actually in May, which would be after HP Day?
Yeah, I think option one seems to flow well.
I like the fact that if the award is presented in May, it makes more sense that we keep that whole thing together.
And certainly,
Otherwise, it's in April
Is
that's
The
it's
prize is
awarded.
awarded after HP Day, just like it was, you had the contest, HP Day, the winner was drawn, and then it was announced at the next meeting. I would just kind of a,
in the past, I believe the award has always been prior to HP Day, but also in the earlier years, as you could see from the summary, there hasn't always been an event for HP Day. Some years, the sole thing is the award. And then the pandemic hit, and that put the kibosh on other things. So whatever activities you choose for HP Day may not relate to wanting to provide information about the award at all. So it's certainly not critical if you want to have the award presented in May after HP Day. But
How extensive are the guidelines to nominating a structure, a business?
it's right in the packet here. You'll want to read that through later.
I'm just wondering if it is very extensive, or if there's something, if we're only getting 2 or 3 nominations.
No, we don't try to overwhelm people. So like I said, what you have here is basically, a web page that invites people to make nominations. It tells them the award criteria. It tells them what factors the commission will consider. It tells them what the requirements for nominations. And then the actual nomination form online is this single page. They only have to submit, ideally their name, their email address, the address of the nominated parcel, whatever additional information, the reason why they're nominating that property, and if they have any photos. And sometimes the nominations are made by the property owner, and sometimes the nominations are made by a complete stranger, just nominating a building they like.
and as Susan said, if there's a lot of nominations, that's fine. I'm picking hers, she kind of pre-screens if they're even eligible, and then, the ones that are eligible come to us, and then we pick the ones that we like. So, if somebody wants to nominate 14 different houses and only one of them's in the property, it'll be screened before it even gets to us. And people have had the opportunity to nominate, and they felt like they're participating. So,
I like the fact that you put the previous year winners' pictures on there. That gets people excited, I would think, or maybe competitive. I wanted to be on that picture for a year. So, who actually puts the flyer together?
We do. However, we can say that our staff doesn't have final say, since this goes out with the city utility mailer as part of that monthly newsletter. Our public relations persons with the city has final say over, text and graphics and format, et cetera. But basically, the version that you've got in the packet from last year, passed muster last year and is similar to the ones for the prior years. So unless you're wanting to change the format drastically, something like this will probably be used. It's simple. I don't know if simple is considered effective or not effective, because who's to say why few people choose to nominate each year or not? Certainly you as commission members, part of your charge is to educate the public. So you are welcome to beat the drum as much as you like with your, friends and colleagues in the city, and tell them to pay attention to the historic district and nominate a property.
That was gonna be my
Once those
question.
flyers go out. Yeah, you can certainly encourage all the people you know
Yes.
to do that. Because there have been years in the past when there were several nominations, and the committee had a lot to choose from. Other years, not so much. But we advertise it the same way every time. We always put that monthly notice out. We try to get the BC Review to put an article in the paper, and they usually do. Sometimes 2 articles, depending on how much time we have open for the nomination process.
Is there any way that we could get a copy of what that flyer looked like last year?
It's in your packet.
That right here. It's
It's on page 57 of the packet.
57. There it is, right there.
This is the one that went in the mailer?
Yep.
I like option 2 also because you actually list out tasks that aren't in option 1, such as when the city council announces the meeting or the Historic Preservation Day, as well as approval of the certificate language and
Right. Depending on the deadlines, as you know, the commission won't always have time to do certain things. Because there are long timelines prior to getting a meeting packet done, like more than 3 weeks in most cases.
But this option 1 doesn't show when the city council would announce Historic Preservation Day.
Oh, no, yeah, it does. Option 1 would be on April 23rd.
That's for the award presentation,
and-
not for
No.
Historic Preservation Day?
Right after that comma, announce HP Day,
Okay.
because there wouldn't be
So
another
it's the
regular
same
council
thing.
meeting
Gotcha.
after
All
that.
right, sorry. Thank you.
Both of those options say HP Day flyers in utility mailers, where the actual one says February. So does it actually go out in February? April seemed like it would be a little late, or am I missing something there?
The flyer has to be ready in March, early March, in order to go out in the April utility mayors
Oh,
for
okay.
HP Day.
So I was looking at that photo, and it looked like it was February's utility bill.
Last year, again, I believe there was a council meeting in May prior to HP Day. And,
so it
so
backed it
again,
up.
the timelines, that's why I provide the commission timeline options so that you can see what lead time you have before certain events. And depending on when the second Tuesday of the month is for council meeting, or the fourth Tuesday versus your second Saturday for HP Day, and, it's different every year.
Anybody have any questions or have a opinion about which option?
The best of both. If it went well last year, I would think keep it the same unless something, war or something changes, another pandemic. Other than that, keep it the same. Why change it if it works? Unless it drastically, something went wrong last year that to back it up a month or so.
I guess, Susan, do you want to, briefly describe the next steps then after we kind of figure out which option to go with? But then we have to come up with a theme. We have to actually
Right. Well,
discuss
keep in mind,
activities and.
Yeah, the award is a fairly standard process each year. You're going to have an award presented. Literally, your only decision for 2024 is, do you want the council to, approve it in April prior to HP Day, or in May during Preservation Month after HP Day? That's your only significant decision of choice, because as mentioned, the process works pretty well. We'll do our part, getting all the notices out, collecting all the nominations, getting the information on the website, and providing that to you. We have to contact the company that makes the bronze plaques and order that. We do all of that, so your job is very little. You decide on when it's going to be awarded, and then you choose the award winner. For HP Day, that is all you guys. You guys have to come up with your theme and your ideas, and As you can see, I've got highlighted in yellow all the upcoming, there's really only 5 meeting dates that you have to discuss what you want to do for HP Day. Now, the report notes that technically for planning of an event like this, you can meet and discuss planning the event, I believe, outside the public meeting. If that's not in this report, I apologize. I'll double check. But for the most part, all your decisions about the event have to be at these public meetings. So getting a handle or an idea of what you want your theme to be and what you want to do, you got to start thinking about that now, because as the current committee members know, once you get rolling on actually preparing for the event, that's a lot of work and time on your part, depending on how many venues you want to have. There have been some years, when it's been a single thing, I believe one year the only event was tours of the Lodge House, and because that's not normally open to the public, you had a ton of people show up for that. And I believe Michael even did a volunteer driving day on an alternate date afterwards to accommodate all the people who wanted to do that tour. Other years, you've proposed activities that covered multiple venues and had different speakers and volunteers needed at all those multiple venues, and obviously that takes a lot more coordination and effort on your part.
So over the past few meetings, I think we've talked about, we could do that at the next Historic Preservation Day event. I wonder if you could find those notes.
I don't,
Because we talked about maybe like a windows restoration demonstration or presenting something having to do with the water treatment facility.
Would it be in the minutes?
It'll
Well-
probably be in the minutes, but I wasn't sure if they were searchable.
the only thing I recall is Michael has mentioned that we've got our pending grant funds for a window restoration workshop, but I don't know if the timing of that could relate to HP Day at all, because it would depend on the grant being approved and finding the right presenter.
I think that as it relates to that topic, we are trying to coordinate when that consulting firm related to the grant that was awarded by SHPO can come to Boulder City to do the program. How HP Day would work with that, I'd have to think about that and also talk to that coordinator, because that's going to be like a limited group of people that would be trained over a 3-day period, and how we might incorporate the public into that. I can certainly make an inquiry and let you know at the next meeting.
I would throw out, if you're going to put something like that together, this training thing, if it's after HP Day, make sure we have a flyer or something like that that we can hand out to anybody who shows up at HP Day. If you're interested in this thing, here's a date, time, place, and stuff to go to about the window thing or something like that. I'm not sure if it'd be a good event for on HB Day or not, but if it's after that, we should make sure that we've got a flyer to hand out to anybody that comes to it, because that would be information for very, like Michael said, for a very specific group of people. I mean, people live in over like in Storybrooke, they're not going to be probably not interested in going to a class about how to repair a historic window, unless it's a hobby of theirs or something.
I wasn't thinking it would be a training, it'd be maybe more of a demonstration, but it was also dependent on the timing of the contract and what was going on at the water treatment plant and other factors, so. Anyway, that was just one example that I recall that we said, hey, we could do that at the next Historic Preservation Day. But I think we've, over the past few meetings, we've had a bunch of those kind of brainstorm suggestions, and I'm not sure where to find them.
Well, how about this, Chairwoman Davenport? If everyone wants to think about topics, and when you meet again, we'll put this back on the agenda and focus exclusively on selecting a topic that will allow the commission to move forward with planning for that.
I think from here on out, it's a standing agenda item, isn't
Yes.
it?
Yeah,
So-
and technically, you don't even have to choose a timeline option 1 or 2 yet, since when you want to present the award might relate to what you end up planning for HP Day, as to whether it matters or not. We'll still have, because up until, for at least for the next few months or so, like I said, the city can move forward with getting the award flyer prepared, and that's not dependent on when HP Day is. Actually, hold on, have to correct myself. Well, I guess the only thing that would matter, no, we still have the proposed nomination submittal deadline of March 10th, because then you would be choosing the award winner in late March. And that would be for council presentation of the award either late April or early May. Yeah, so the nomination deadline would stay the same. So whatever you choose for HP Day doesn't have to be in this flyer for the award. So if you wish to delay choosing the timeline option, you can do that. Not for too much longer, but at least you don't have to do it at this meeting if you don't want to.
I just assume get it over with, but unless
I agree.
somebody else wants to.
I agree.
Okay. Do we want to raise our hand or put in our vote for which option, or
Option 1.
I'm leaning towards that as well.
option 1?
One.
I was going for option 2?
One.
Okay. Option 1 it is.
Okay, that'll make it easier for the next packet to then focus just on that timeline.
Got it.
May I make a suggestion about the flyer? Is there any way that we could add a QR code to this so it would make it more accessible and easier for people to be sent straight to the website?
We can certainly look into that.
Yes.
Because that would kind of make it a lot easier and maybe change a little bit of it so it's a little bit more appealing and less business-like, and make it a little bit different than a lot of the flyers that go into the utility mailer.
Well, you're welcome to propose whatever you'd like, but as I said, your commission and our staff are not in charge of that. Because the department that's in charge of those flyers does want a consistent appearance, for the information that goes in there. But you're welcome to, if you've got specific suggestions, by all means, forward them to us, and we will pass them on and, see what passes muster.
It'd be nice to get a QR code on there, make it
Yep, we'll certainly check.
very quick.
Thanks, everyone. Good discussion. Let's see, next item on the agenda. Item number 5, for, excuse me, for possible action, update on implementation of the commission's goals and priorities.
So this is a regular agenda item each month, and it's to provide the commission a status report on how we are implementing the goals that were set in the Historic Preservation Plan adopted by the City Council, and the same goals which were adopted by the commission. And so you'll note in the matrix, any new information that's included is highlighted in bold, just so that stands out for you, so you can see that progress. And as previously noted, we are very excited that SHPO has informed the city that the grant that we had submitted for the $16,600 to put on the window restoration project has been approved. And so this program, this workshop, which will occur next spring will be to train contractors on how to restore historic windows. The one thing that we found, both Courtney and myself, as well as talking to the city of Las Vegas, is you have homeowners who want to restore their existing windows, and there is no one in the valley that has the knowledge to do that. And so then that forces homeowners to look at window replacement, which could potentially take a property from contributing to non-contributing. So SHPO thought this was a great program. We bring in somebody from the Midwest that has extensive knowledge of window restoration. There will be up to 12 students that will go through a 3-day workshop to learn how to restore windows. The goal that once they're trained, then they'll offer their services to homeowners within Southern Nevada to help restore their existing windows.
And you think there's going to be enough contractors interested in learning that?
That's what we're going to be doing over the next several months to promote it to them and present that opportunity. It's a free workshop to them.
Are you going to try it? Are you going to limit it to just Boulder City contractors? Or it's going to be open to contractors all over, for like Vegas, Henderson, and Boulder City?
No, the entire valley. It's important that contractors in the Las Vegas metro area have this
Okay,
opportunity.
so it's going to be open to basically everybody in Southern Nevada then?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Will you just address wood windows or also metal windows? Or have you gotten that far yet?
No, it's going to be wood windows because the consultant, it's a hands-on workshop, a 3-day workshop. And so the site that's been selected is the home owned by the museum on Avenue C. They have 6 wooden windows, and they're badly in need of restoration. And so the consultant takes them through the whole process.
Real world.
Yes.
Fantastic opportunity.
Anybody have any other comments? Nope. Okay,
All good stuff.
very good. All right, moving on to item number 6. Discussion update on the status of properties in the historic district or other potentially eligible properties.
For the new members, this is simply we provide you a monthly list of what permits have been issued within the historic district so that you know what's happening. And since the new ordinance, we've had to frame this somewhat differently, so we've got it set up to show you which permits had received a certificate of appropriateness from the Historic Preservation Commission, because that might have occurred months before. Because once a citizen may come before the commission for approval, they may have delays and not proceed with their project right away. So sometimes permit issuance is long after something the commission may have reviewed. And then per the code, there are certain cases where there can be a certificate of appropriateness approved administratively, typically for non-contributing properties. But even in those cases, it's still reviewed by Courtney, so we let you know if any have been issued during the past month for that. And then lastly, we also let you know if there were any permits issued where the certificate of appropriateness was not applicable, typically when they're doing work that's not visible to the street. So that's all based on the code. And then the map is attached for that, which shows you where the district boundaries are. So you always see that every month, and it lists the addresses. And basically, we just present you this information. If you've got any questions, you're welcome to ask about those. And as the cover sheet notes, this is the part of the agenda when, if you've got a question about some other property in the historic district, you can bring it up at that time. There can't be extensive discussion on it because all items discussed by the commission have to be a listed agenda item. But if you simply broach the topic that, hey, I saw some work going on at such and such commercial building, what's happening, staff can follow up on it, and if need be, we'll report on it to you the following month or, by other means.
So what's the status of the water filtration plant contract?
The covenants have been recorded with the county and submitted to SHPO, and that was a requirement before the city could proceed with any work. And so now that that's been accomplished within the last couple of weeks, the Public Works Department will then proceed with the bidding process with that work.
And can you summarize what the covenant is for that property?
So the covenant just stipulates the grant that the city is receiving. It's a 40-year covenant on the preservation of the property and review by SHPO of any modifications.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
No.
Or know of any properties that we should discuss?
No.
Okay.
Get some smiles sprayed.
Okay, let's see. Item number 7, for possible action, commission discussion regarding potential agenda items for upcoming Historic Preservation Commission meetings.
So, Madam Chairwoman, as you are discussing potential agenda items, I also want to discuss when the next meeting would be held. In the schedule that was approved last November, it was decided that it'd be November 29th. That was with a different majority commission than here, so that's the number one issue. The number two is that there's a conflict with that time, and so what I wanted to pose to the commission is your availability on 3 potential other dates, and also to note, traditionally, because of the holidays and because the commission meets on the 4th Wednesday of every month, the December meeting is always canceled. So, with that in mind, 3 potential dates, and I've conferred with the clerk's office that the council chambers are available. 5 o'clock on either November 22nd, that's the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, so I understand that that may be a challenge. December 6th, also a Wednesday, or December 13th, also a Wednesday.
I'm available on all 3 of those, so.
I would like the 22nd, November 22nd.
I'm sorry, could you all maybe speak in turn so that we can,
November 22nd works for me.
November 22nd works for me, Susan.
Booked for me as well.
for the 22nd?
Correct.
Okay.
Sounds like we have a consensus then on November 22nd.
Hold on, I gotta get my work
Oh,
planner out.
Oh,
Sorry.
well, you can have Thursday off. You can have the 23rd off.
November 22nd, the day before Thanksgiving?
Yes, week before, or,
No, it's the day before Thanksgiving.
oh, it's the day before?
Yes.
Yes.
That's why we normally don't have it on the 4th Wednesday of the month, is due to the holiday, and why we usually choose another date.
I will not be available the
Okay.
22nd.
so how about December 6th?
Yes, December 6th is good for me.
I don't know. I don't have my December schedule.
It's tentatively, I'm available the 6th, I'm not available the 13th.
6th of December?
I'm available December 6th.
I guess I can be available then too, I guess. Make it unanimous. Unless something
Almost.
comes up.
You're gonna check.
Yeah.
All right,
Or
well,
for
at
a
least
quorum?
we would have at least a quorum for a meeting on December 6th. So what we'll do is set up a specially called meeting on December 6th. And so with that, this is your opportunity to bring up potential agenda items. We're already going to be discussing Historic Preservation Day And hopefully Courtney will be able to make the changes raised tonight, and we can bring back the design guideline, the design guideline modifications for the commission to vote on.
Michael, back on the date, the time would remain the same, correct? 5
Correct.
o'clock?
5 o'clock, yep.
Do the new commission members, do you have anything that you would like to learn more about or have on the agenda that you don't know yet? No? Okay.
Not at this time.
Okay. Alrighty, then.
On the training workshop, would we be able to peek in, or is that a closed session? I mean, that's just a neat thing to see. But
Oh,
windows-
you're talking about the window
Contractors only?
restoration?
Yes.
Yeah, certainly that we would want to have the commission have the opportunity to
I would
check
love
in
to
on
see
it.
that,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Would they be able to do some type of certificate, so it doesn't have to be a licensed contractor? It could be like a handyman, or,
Well, it'll be certificates will be issued to those.
I think that would be more, we would be able to keep it locally easier.
Is that
All
a
right.
trade?
Handyman?
No, that type of window seemed like you would have some type of a trade to even be selected to do something like that.
I just know that a lot of the historical homes have, there's certain handymen that basically work on them because they know the houses.
Okay, know that.
I would imagine it would need to be somebody licensed.
Yeah, the handyman.
Yeah, license.
There is a handyman license.
So, just for the edification of the new commission members, when we're on a particular agenda item, we have to stick to that agenda item. And so, once we move on to other agendas, we can't go back. But I'm happy to talk to any of you separately and offline, kind of about what that program is. And I think as we get closer, we will be sharing additional details with the commission.
Okay.
All right. Now is the final comment period for the evening. Each person has 5 minutes to speak on any topic. The public may call 702-589-9629 to provide comment.
Madam Chair, after you've done listening for any phone calls coming in, I will have a comment to make.
Thank you.
Seeing and hearing that there are no comments, we will close the final comment.
We
Madam
have
Chair.
one
Oh.
more.
Well, that's the public comment.
It is a public comment.
Now we have a non-public comment, or,
Thank you. Well, although this happens to be my first commission meeting with some of you, it will also be my last commission meeting for all of you. Having worked for the city for 30 years, I'm hanging it up and retiring within a month, so I will not be present for your following meetings. But I'll do necessary work for you up until that point, and Michael and Courtney will serve you in good stead until they find a replacement.
wow, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations and enjoy it.
Thank you for all you've done for us over the years.
You're very welcome.
Appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Well, this meeting is adjourned.
I think it would be appropriate to ask during the meeting. still figuring a lot of that out.
gotta at least volunteer for something.
That's the plan.
You gotta keep it.